Good afternoon, I'm Bakhtiar Sonov and you are watching AnewZ. Let's see the top stories shaping our world. Tariffs remain in place. Trade negotiations are continuing. White House says after a court ruling briefly blocked President Donald Trump's trade actions. Israel has agreed to a U.S. ceasefire proposal for Gaza. Hamas said it was reviewing the plan. Uzbekistan and Italy signed a joint declaration on strengthening their strategic partnership. Tariffs remain in place. Trade negotiations are continuing. The White House says after a court ruling briefly blocked President Donald Trump's trade actions. The New York-based Court of International Trade ruled that Trump overstepped his authority by imposing the import levies last month. U.S. President Donald Trump filed an emergency motion to stop a recent ruling that blocked his global tariffs.
A federal appeals court temporarily reinstated the most sweeping of U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs on Thursday. This came just one day after a U.S. trade court ruled that the president had overstepped his authority and ordered an immediate halt to the tax hikes. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit in Washington, D.C., said it was pausing the lower court's ruling while it considers the government's appeal. It gave the plaintiffs until the 5th of June to respond, and the administration must file its reply by the 9th of June. White House trade advisor Peter Navarro insists the administration is prepared to act on multiple fronts if needed. For now, the tariffs remain in place.
There's no plan B, it's plan A, okay? Plan A encompasses all strategic options, and when we move forward, we had a full view of what the battlefield looks like. We are not naive about rogue justices in the judiciary.
Thank you very much.
The trade court had earlier ruled that Trump went beyond his powers by using emergency law to impose broad tariffs, stating that only Congress has the authority to set duties. Despite the ruling, the White House is standing its ground. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt called the decision judicial overreach and said the Supreme Court must back the president. Trump also warned that judgment, if upheld, would weaken presidential power. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said trade negotiations are continuing, with no signs that America's trading partners are backing away.
We have not seen any of that in terms of our trading partners. They are coming to us in good faith and trying to complete the deals before the 90-day pause ends. So we've seen no change in their attitude in the past 48 hours. As a matter of fact, I have a very large Japanese delegation coming to my office first thing tomorrow morning.
White House economic advisor Kevin Hassett also highlighted progress continues on several trade deals despite the court's ruling.
I saw last week, at the end of the week, 3 that were basically ready for the president's decision. I don't know if people have had that conversation with him yet, but yes, there are many, many deals coming, and there were 3 that are basically look like they're done.
Trump's tariff strategy has shaken financial markets for months. On Thursday, U.S. stocks closed slightly higher as investors reacted to both the court news and corporate earnings. The S&P 500, NASDAQ and Dow all posted modest gains. Analysts say uncertainty remains. With the Court of Appeals now reviewing the case, both sides are preparing to make their arguments. For now, Trump's tariffs stay in place. U.S. stocks ended slightly higher on Thursday, while investors digested the late afternoon court ruling.
Cargo at the port of Los Angeles, the busiest in the United States, has dropped sharply due to high tariffs on Chinese goods and legal uncertainty, according to the director of the port, Gene Seroka. As the holiday shipping season nears, importers are facing major problems.
The head of the busiest port in the United States, the Port of Los Angeles, says that uncertainty among importers is increasing. The reason, President Donald Trump's tariffs on Chinese goods and the ongoing legal disputes surrounding them. according to the director of the port. Jean Soroka says this situation is negatively affecting preparations for the holiday season. It's after the US Court of International Trade tried to block the tariffs this week. However, the Federal Appeals Court has temporarily reinstated them. The port's director says that imports of goods for the back-to-school period and the holiday season have decreased. In May, cargo volume dropped significantly compared to the same period last year, with some weeks seeing a 30% decline. 10 vessel arrivals scheduled for June have been cancelled, 5 of which were planned for the first week of the month. The Port of Los Angeles is a key entry point for goods from China, and major companies such as Walmart and Ford rely on it. Last month, Trump imposed a 145% tariff on Chinese goods, halting many shipments to the US. Due to shipping delays, the impact on cargo volume was felt 2 to 3 weeks later. Even though the US and China agreed earlier this month to temporarily reduce tariffs to 30%, the situation remains unstable. The Federal Appeals Court says the plaintiffs in the legal challenge can respond by the 5th of June and the Trump administration by the 9th of June, suggesting that uncertainty will likely continue in the coming days.
The White House says Israel has accepted a US-backed 60-day Gaza ceasefire plan presented by US envoy Steve Witkoff. While Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office hasn't confirmed it, Hamas says it's reviewing the plan. The deal calls for the release of 28 Israeli hostages in exchange for 125 Palestinian prisoners and 180 bodies, along with immediate aid to Gaza. Israeli media reports that Netanyahu has informed the families of hostages of Israel's agreement to the deal. Hamas says the plan lacks commitments to end the war, withdraw troops, and unblock aid. Israel insists that Hamas must disarm and release hostages before peace can be achieved. Meanwhile, a US-backed aid program in Gaza has expanded to a third side, delivering nearly 1.8 million meals, according to officials.
I can confirm that Special Envoy Witkoff and the President submitted a ceasefire proposal to Hamas that Israel backed and supported. Israel signed off on this proposal before it was sent to Hamas. I can also confirm that those discussions are continuing, and we hope that a ceasefire in Gaza will take place so we can return all of the hostages home, and that's been a priority from this administration from the beginning. I won't comment further as we are in the midst of this right now.
So to be clear, you don't know if Hamas has accepted it yet?
Not to my knowledge, but certainly if that becomes case and this ceasefire goes into effect, you'll hear it directly from myself, the President, or Special Envoy Witkoff.
The United States has told the United Nations Security Council that its ceasefire plan is Russia's best possible deal and urged President Vladimir Putin to accept it. The U.S. warns Russia that if it continues the war, Washington may step back from negotiations and consider more sanctions. The proposal calls for an immediate unconditional 30-day ceasefire. The White House says U.S. President Donald Trump is hoping for a direct meeting between Russia and Ukraine in Istanbul on Monday.
And the President has been clear from the very beginning of this conflict that he wants to see this conflict solved on the negotiating table, not on the battlefield. And he's told that to both leaders, again, both publicly and privately. So hopefully next week it will move the ball forward in this.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says Russia has failed to deliver a promised memorandum outlining a potential ceasefire deal. Despite assurances after Russian President Vladimir Putin's call with US President Donald Trump on the 19th of May, Ukraine, its allies and Turkey say they haven't received any document. Kiev says it submitted its proposal earlier this week and urged Moscow to present its version before the next proposed meeting on Monday in Istanbul. Zelensky says Moscow is stalling to undermine the process and avoid accountability.
Even the so-called memorandum they promised and seemingly prepared for more than a week has still not been seen by anyone. Ukraine didn't get it. Our partners didn't get it. Even Turkey, which was hosting the first meeting, didn't get the new agenda. Despite promises to the contrary, and first of all promises to the United States of America, to President Trump. Another Russian deceit.
Ukraine says Russian forces launched a massive overnight drone attack on the northeastern Kharkiv region, injuring several civilians, including 2 teenagers. Officials say more than 90 drones and 2 ballistic missiles targeted Kharkiv, Odessa and Donetsk. The attack also hit the largest port on the Danube River near NATO member Armenia, a key hub for essential imports. In Kharkiv city, 8 Shahed drones struck a trolley bus depot, injuring 2 people and damaging more than 30 apartment buildings. 1 trolley bus was destroyed and 18 others were damaged. However, public transport remains operational. In the Chuyev community, drones hit the village of Vasilyev Kutir, injuring 8 people and causing widespread damage. Russia hasn't commented on the attacks. U.S. President Donald Trump has stated that his administration is very close to a solution on a renewed nuclear agreement with Iran. In a surprising revelation, Trump also described that he personally warned Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu not to interfere with the negotiations, calling any such disruption inappropriate. Joining us now from Ankara to unpack these developments is Melih Demirtas, a prominent researcher at Cappadocia University in Turkey with expertise in U.S. foreign policy and security dynamics in the Middle East. Dr. Melih Demirtas, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you again for having me.
Dr. Demirtas, what do you make of President Donald Trump's claim that his administration is close to finalizing a solution with Iran on the nuclear issue?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Trump has, of course, very different maybe presidency compared to other presidency eras in the United States, in the foreign policy making of United States. We can say that Mr. Trump's, of course, decisions can have some different perspectives, can have some different maybe paths. In 1 week, in the other week, and the other month, we can find some other maybe solutions or ideas in his mind, or also in his maybe cadre, in his bureaucrats' understanding. But actually, before taking his presidency, Mr. Trump also gave the signals that he will, he makes some maybe important steps towards some important, maybe deep difficulties in the United States affairs, also in the affairs of the world politics. And I think one of these big topics in the United, of course, States agenda is Iran. And so maybe in our researches, in our topics and as the researchers in the field of Eurasia, it is not so surprising that a figure like Mr. Trump, who really believes some like a win-win situation in diplomatic games, like a tradesman, because please do not forget that he's also important tradesman. He always underlines his specialty about that. So he maybe thinks that this step will be much more beneficial for the wider perspective, for the perspective for the United States, also for the perspective of maybe the bigger Eurasian game, because the Eurasian perspective is now changing, maybe with the new players like China, of course, Turkey, Azerbaijans, and other players, roles are increasing now. And now Israel and also Mr. Netanyahu's governments must think twice, I think, because of this changing attitude of Mr. Trump.
So, Mr. Demirtas, how is Turkey likely to respond to a potential US-Iran deal? Would Ankara view it as a stabilizing factor or a challenge to its own regional interests?
There have been always different perspectives about the issue of Iran, about the position of Iran, of course, vis-a-vis Turkey, and of course the other regional players, of course, Azerbaijan, Armenia, and all these important players in Central Asia and Caucasia. But still, I think Turkish diplomacy, Turkey's stable and stability ideals, also peaceful ideals, will always support such deals. Because Turkey wants also a stable Iran, of course, a democratic Iran, and also a very, prosperous and peaceful Iran, also which could maybe support the other balances, like the balances also which could be taken together with Azerbaijani new project, Turkey's new project, like the Gaza corridor, please do not forget. So the deal, maybe a possible deal between the United States and Iran, will shape this all positive balances inside the region. But we must first of all think that Iran's government and Iran's, of course, supreme leadership and other, bureaucrats must feel ready to such a new environment. They must believe that this diplomacy must really can have important maybe benefit and contribution to all the players inside the region, because in the last 1.5 years,
Dr. Melih Demirtaş, thank you very much for joining us and sharing your insights. Western and central Canada are battling a growing wildfire emergency, with 2 provinces declaring states of emergency and thousands of residents forced to flee their homes.
Canada's Saskatchewan province has declared a state of emergency on Thursday, as the province faces a critical wildfire threat. According to Premier Scott Moe, there are currently 17 active wildfires, with 15 communities already evacuated.
It's a very serious situation that we're faced with in Saskatchewan. We do need some rainfall. We need that sooner rather than later. And in light of that not being in the forecast, we most certainly are putting in place every measure possible to prepare our province, prepare our communities, and prepare those that live in our northern communities that are threatened by these wildfires in the days ahead.
On Wednesday, the neighbouring province of Manitoba also declared a state of emergency, urging thousands of residents in northern and eastern regions to evacuate their homes as wildfires spread rapidly. Nationwide, more than 166 wildfires are currently active, with 84 classified as out of control, according to the Canadian Interagency Forest Fire Centre. The most severe fires are concentrated in Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Alberta, Ontario, and British Columbia. In response, the Canadian Armed Forces have been deployed to Manitoba to assist with evacuation and firefighting operations. As smoke from the fires continues to drift south, officials warn of worsening air quality in parts of the United States. Emergency crews remain on high alert as the situation evolves under persistently dry and windy conditions.
In southern Switzerland, a glacier has collapsed and buried most of the village of Blatten. 1 man remains missing and authorities have paused the search due to dangerous conditions.
The search for a missing man in the Swiss village of Blatten has been suspended after a massive flow of ice, rock and mud collapsed from the Birch Glacier on Wednesday, burying much of the settlement. Authorities say unstable debris mounds and the risk of further rockfalls have made it too dangerous for rescue teams to continue working on the ground. Blatten's 300 residents had already been evacuated from their homes earlier in May, when part of the mountain above showed signs of instability. But the landslide that followed covered nearly the entire area. Some of the few buildings left standing were later flooded as water from a blocked river began to rise. The collapse left a visible scar down the Klein's Nesthorn mountain. The River Lonza, which flows through the area, has been clogged with debris nearly 2 kilometres wide, causing a lake to form. Officials report that the water level has been rising by up to 80 centimetres per hour, driven by both the river blockage and ongoing glacial melt. The army has deployed personnel and equipment, including helicopters and water pumps, while livestock is being airlifted out of nearby farms. Residents in neighbouring villages such as Gampel and Steeg have been told to prepare for potential evacuation if conditions worsen. Scientists monitoring the Alps say this type of event aligns with ongoing changes in the region. Glaciers are melting faster and permafrost, which helps bind mountain rock, is thawing. That combination is making slopes more unstable, especially in summer months.
Over the course of the past 2 weeks or so, there was a large rock instability that developed above the glacier. So there's a mountain and, rock started falling off the mountain and depositing on the glacier. And then over the course of the past few days, we saw this glacier under the weight of this rock starting to accelerate. So it started to flow more quickly down towards the valley. And ultimately, what happened yesterday, while we don't know precisely what the chain of events was in the last hour to minutes before it all kind of crashed down into the valley, ultimately, the ice of the glacier and the large amount of rock that had been deposited on top of the glacier came crashing down.
While experts caution against drawing conclusions too quickly, many say climate change is contributing to the increase in such high-altitude hazards. Swiss authorities are already considering further protective measures as the warming trend continues.
For sure, whether climate change was the main driver of this event, because we would need to know for certain whether this event would have happened in a reality that doesn't have any climate change, and we don't have that parallel reality really. And what we know is that climate change at high elevations is not favorable for rock slope stability. So with increasing temperatures, more water available through ice and snow melt, maybe precipitation falling even at high elevations more often as rain than as snow. So those are factors that are not beneficial to mountain stability.
The Swiss president is expected to visit the site soon. Local leaders have pledged support for displaced residents, but with much of the village now buried or flooded, it's unclear when or if people will be able to return.
In a significant step towards deepening international ties, Uzbekistan and Italy have elevated their relationship to the level of strategic partnership. President Shavkat Mirziyoyev and Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni met in the historic city of Samarkand, where a series of groundbreaking agreements were signed. During high-level discussions held in Samarkand, the President of Uzbekistan, Shavkat Mirziyoyev, and Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni adopted a joint declaration that formally established a strategic partnership between the two countries. A formal ceremony was held in the presence of both leaders, where a series of newly signed bilateral agreements were exchanged. These accords span a wide range of areas, including the promotion and mutual protection of investments, cooperation in the field of critical raw materials, and joint efforts on migration and mobility. The country is also committed to a deeper partnership in sustainable development, environmental protection, and the preservation of cultural heritage. Notable agreements were signed to enhance collaboration with the Italian Climate Fund and the Italian Confederation of Agriculture. Key green development initiatives were also launched in partnership with prominent Italian companies, including Sogesid and Ansalado. These efforts are expected to contribute to both nations' long-term environmental and industrial goals. Beyond governmental cooperation, the visit featured the execution of a number of significant partnership instruments. This includes collaborative frameworks with the National Research Center of Italy, strategic industrial alliances with companies such as Cimest and Danieli, and an academic memorandum of understanding with the University of Perugia. Together, these extensive agreements underscore a shared commitment to strengthening bilateral ties across economic, environmental, academic, and technological domains. Recent data also highlights the success of ongoing economic collaboration. Bilateral trade between Uzbekistan and Italy has nearly tripled in recent years, propelled by a broader scope of commerce and strengthened economic ties. Now we turn our focus to a significant development in Central Asia. Kazakhstan is deepening its strategic partnership with China through the expansion of new railway lines. This move aims to boost bilateral trade and enhance regional connectivity, especially within the broader framework of China's Belt and Road Initiative. The strengthened infrastructure links are set to position Kazakhstan as a vital transit hub between East and West, with implications for regional economics, logistics, and geopolitics. To explore the strategic significance of this growing connectivity and what it means for the region, I'm joined by Kuat Dombay, Director of Center for Central Asian Studies from Almaty, Kazakhstan. Kuat Dombay, welcome to the program.
Thank you for inviting. Good morning.
Mr. Kuat Dombay, how significant are the new railway projects in transforming Kazakhstan's role as a regional transit hub?
I would say that the new expansion of the railroad within Kazakhstan in cooperation with China and mainly targeted to increase of the transit of Chinese goods to Europe and generally facilitating the trade by China through Kazakhstan with the Western countries and the Central Asian Caucasus plays significant role as a part or as the main project of Belt and Road Initiative. And what we see now is that Kazakhstan is actively building the new railway connections to dramatically increase the capacity of its current railroad, which will go from China through Kazakhstan to the western port of Aktau to Uzbekistan and the other countries, Turkmenistan and the others. Basically, we are talking that the expansion of the railroad, which is being done now, will increase the capacity almost fivefold. So it's not even a double increase, it's a much bigger expansion, which will, of course, have significant impact on Kazakhstan's economy.
So what specific sectors of Kazakhstan's economy stand to benefit most from improved rail connectivity with China?
We already see a very good impact because Kazakhstan, which despite big investments before, Kazakhstan attracted, let's say, 2/3 of all investments which were done to the Central Asia, so over 60%. But they mostly before went into the energy sector, into oil and gas sector. Now, with the expansion of the trade with China, we see diversification of those investments into the logistics. So we see a lot of hubs being built, the ports, and that also facilitates all other sectors. For example, the increase of trade, we see that there was a lot being done with the processing of everything, basically, starting from agricultural products to the machinery and etc.
So how might this increased connectivity affect Kazakhstan's trade relations with other neighboring countries or blocs like the EU and Russia?
Well, it's hard to say about how this would affect the trade with Russia because, let's say, if we looked at the tempo of trade, the increase of Kazakh trade with China is much more active than it is with Russia. Basically, starting from 2024, China has become the largest trade partner for Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan. So Russia, for the first time since the Soviet and Russian Empire era, has become the second largest trading partner.
Yes.
And this gap is actually increasing. So with the, let's say, there is a tectonical change which is happening now. I would say, for example, Kazakhstan trade with China in 24 was about $27 billion. Now it is $40 billion. And this year it will increase even more. While with Russia, it fell below $27 billion. So you see that even in 2 years, this change has been not just, it's expanding to over 30% already in 2 years. And with the expansion of the railroad, we would logically presume that this gap will be even bigger. As for the trade with Uzbekistan, this is the second largest country and the largest by population country. We see also the significant increase of trade between Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, as well as between Kazakhstan and Azerbaijan, for example. The latest figures compared to the last year, in 2025 compared to 2024, we see that the trade with Azerbaijan also increased, almost doubled.
Yes.
So we would expect that our trade could reach, I mean, if it was last year about $500 million, it could easily reach this year $1 billion, which is a significant tempo. So we should look in the projections mostly at the trends, which of course, due to this development of the infrastructure, the Kazakhstan is planning to also to increase twofold the fleet on the Caspian Sea the trade between our countries with Azerbaijan and the trade with Uzbekistan and Kyrgyzstan will be increasing.
Kardonbay, thank you very much for joining us and sharing your insights. We truly appreciate your time and expertise. Thank you very much.
With great pleasure. Thank you.
Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said his country and Armenia stand to gain from ongoing efforts to normalize relations. Erdogan said that the normalization process is moving forward gradually and could pave the way for peace and mutual benefit. He also urged Iran to support plans for the Zengezur corridor, a proposed transport route through southern Armenia. With talks progressing between Armenia and Azerbaijan, Erdogan said peace between Yerevan and Baku is now on the horizon. Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev met with U.S. Senator Steve Daines in Baku in a new push to deepen bilateral ties. Daines congratulated Azerbaijan on its Independence Day and praised the country's peacekeeping role in Afghanistan, especially during the Kabul airport evacuation. President Aliyev expressed gratitude and highlighted a letter from the U.S. President that pointed to growing opportunities in energy security and trade. The meeting also underscored Azerbaijan's rising importance as a regional logistics hub along the Middle Corridor. Georgia's Prime Minister Irakli Kobakhidze has backed the prospect of joining the European Union, but warned membership mustn't come at the cost of Georgian national identity. Speaking at an event in Budapest, he accused Western institutions of pushing gender ideology and undermining traditional values. Kobakhidze said that Georgia's path to the EU must protect its faith and identity. Tbilisi applied for membership in 2022, but the process has been paused indefinitely amid allegations of democratic backsliding. The EU's new strategy for the Black Sea region places Georgia and its broader region at the center. Our Nini Nikolashvili has the details in Tbilisi.
The European Union has unveiled a new strategy for the Black Sea region, the one that directly concerns Georgia, both as a coastal state and as a crucial link between East and West. With security and sustainable development at its core, the plan reflects Brussels' sharpened geopolitical focus following Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. The EU's new strategy underlines deeper cooperation with 6 key partners, including Georgia, Moldova, Ukraine, Turkey, Armenia, and Azerbaijan. For Tbilisi, this is a clear opportunity to reaffirm its European path and to strengthen its role as a reliable partner as new corridors of transport, energy, and digital infrastructure take shape across the South Caucasus. Central to the strategy is the creation of a maritime security hub integrating data from the EU and Black Sea partners. This is a move with clear implications for Georgia's port cities, where security and trade interests now go hand in hand. But beyond the security, the project also offers economic benefits. With EU's Global Gateway initiative in play, the investments are expected to flow into the connectivity projects, potentially linking Georgian, Azerbaijani, and Central Asian networks more tightly with European markets. Brussels insists that strategy is not just a reaction to Russia's aggression, but long-term shift policy. Still, time is telling. As Russia's actions continue to destabilize the Black Sea, the EU is moving to assert more unified presence, the one that supports the rule of law, green development, and regional resilience. For Tbilisi and its partners, this would be a new leverage, but also new responsibilities of shaping the future of the region, where peace and stability are increasingly interlinked. This is Nini Nikolashvili reporting from Tbilisi, AnewZ.
And now for something lighter, we go to Turkey, where one beekeeper has a very special prescription for migraine, stress, or sleepless nights. Let's have a look.
Tucked away in the Aegean hills of Turkey, this may look like a regular bee farm. Meet Hossein Ceylan, a third-generation beekeeper with a different type of prescription, breathing in the air from his beehives.
Mostly there are people who come here to benefit from bee products. I saw the benefits of bee air and beehives to human health. Migraine patients come, depressed people come. They both rest and benefit from all natural products.
It's called apitherapy, where patients breathe in bee air through a ventilator system in the hopes of feeling better. It's supposed to help with conditions from allergies to migraines.
This is a method that is widely used in the world. Apitherapy is actually something that covers all of these, and they restore health to the person without harming them at all.
But what about Western medicine? Well, that's still essential, says Hussein, but this could be a sweet addition. He has lobbied for years for the sector to be accepted, conducting research and presenting findings to officials.
We are not against what we call Western medicine. I am trying to bring API therapy into medicine, to be honest.
Seated across from the beehives with ventilators on their faces, the guests take deep breaths.
This is my first time coming here. I've had 2 surgeries. My immune system was weakened. I came to try it.
This smell seems familiar, like it's from my childhood. It relaxes me both psychologically and physically.
It may not be officially recognised, but apitherapy is gaining ground, one breath at a time.
That's all we have for now. Thank you for watching and stay tuned to AnewZ for more updates.